Hello. Right. If you can hear anything in the background, it's my fan. It's too cold for me to be sat in my little gym without a fan on. So I hope you forgive me if you can hear anything. And this session now, I'm going to talk about the principles of my nutrition program. Just getting my notes up here. And I can't emphasize enough about the massive power of making changes to your diet in terms of we think about nutrition from a weight loss point of view, but I just see so much more than that in terms of the benefits, which I'm going to talk about later. But to begin with, I want to just talk about some of the really common problems that I see with women, because most of my clients are sort of women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And, common problems that I see that have a link into their diet is weight gain, and more specifically, not really understanding why they're gaining weight, because that can be really demoralizing to just see that your weight's changing and not feel like you can do anything about it. Then there's low energy, poor sleep, obviously, very common for menopause, brain fog, poor concentration, cravings, hunger, and this just feeling in your stomach that you just need something else, even though you've just not eaten, and this sort of sensation that just will never go away. And that can, again, something that can very much get worse in menopause, but it's not limited to that. Eating very low calories, but still not losing weight, or fasting and not losing weight. Working out, but not seeing any changes to your strength in terms of noticing that you're getting stronger, or not seeing any physical changes that you want to see. You might be working out just to change your physique, and you can feel like you're doing an awful lot of work in the gym and just seeing no benefit at all. Okay, so there are some of the problems that I see that are linked into diet, and just not being sort of constructed in the right way. So I'm going to talk about how to change that shortly. But first of all, I think this is really important because I just want you to know what I am qualified to do and where I get my information from as well. So I am a level 3 personal trainer and also a nutrition advisor. And that means I'm allowed to provide you with general advice about what's a healthy diet, what's well known and understood in research. So all my opinions are research based. That's really important. And also give you information about how to follow a healthy diet, what that looks like, and helping you make sense of dieting fads and trends. And as I say, just understand or know about what current research into diets and nutrition are. And one of my biggest influencers is a woman called Dr. Stacey Sims, and you can have a look at her and check her out on social media if you like. And she's an American scientist. I think she's based in New Zealand at the moment, but I've taken her training courses as well. And she's a specialist in the field of understanding nutrition and exercise and how to adapt it to work with the changes that we undergo through peri and postmenopause. And as someone who's just about postmenopausal, this has been something that's been, very much of interest to me over the past few years, because I, recognize that things changed for me, things that worked in the past didn't work anymore. And it was really important for me. The only way I could really make sense of everything was to understand more about menopause, how my body was changing, and how that was impacting on the way, diet was affecting me, how effective exercise was or wasn't. So I am going to talk about that later on in the week. But yes, that's where I get a lot of my nutrition information from as well. So specifically, I am very interested in eating to support our health and energy levels, and not just seeing food as something we do to lose weight, because it's got has a lot more benefits and a lot more power. And certainly I see, and I think I've talked about this as well in the goal setting exercise, that people, yes, we might want to lose weight. Yes, we might recognize that our weight's changed. We want to do something about it, or at least know that we know how to manage that over time, and we're not just going to be faced with this uncontrollable weight gain. But we also want more at this stage of our lives. We don't want to be on this dieting bandwagon. We want to support our health. We want to have, good health outcomes for the future. What I want to talk about now is some of the, whilst we know that and whilst we have those ambitions, I just want to just give you some information about some of the things or the typical eating scenarios that I see in practice with my clients, women of this age group that I've worked with over the past 4 or 5 years. And quite often we start to fall into the trap of, eating habits that come from not really prioritizing our meals. We don't have a lot of time. We might have, be trying to grab things on the go, or priorities might be to sort the kids out or the dogs out or whatever else we have to do that comes before us. And constantly trying to get by on eating as little as possible. Now, it doesn't always mean we eat as little as possible. What that can mean is that, we skimp on our meals, we have little meals, just, grab a slice of toast or something like that. But then eventually, that can lead to a lot of hunger, genuine hunger and cravings. And then we end up, with a day where we're just grabbing what we can because we haven't had time to stop. So we're just grabbing biscuits, stuff in work, stuff at petrol stations, coffees, just anything that's easy and quick, finishing kids' leftovers, etc. And then we might get towards the end of the day and we feel like we've eaten loads, but not eaten anything proper, not even hungry for our meals, and we're cross with ourselves. And we go into this cycle then of the next morning trying to get by on not very much because we've overdone it the night before. And we get this get into this cycle of, hardly eating and then losing control, hardly eating, losing control. There's also, I see a lot of people fasting, trying to go for really long periods of the day without eating and primarily using that as a way to lose weight. Okay. And, quite often when I look at people's nutrition, I realize that they're not eating enough. And certainly they're not getting enough nutrients to function well. Okay. Now, I want to talk about what I mean when I talk about functioning well. Food is fuel, okay? Our cars run on petrol, we run on food. And there's different qualities of food, yeah? And, what I mean when I talk about functioning well is I mean having the energy and the brain power, the mental focus to do what we need to do all day long. I'm, quite often in awe of how much women do and how much they have to get through and achieve each day. So we need the energy to be on our A game from, for very, very long days. And then we also have to think about, functioning well also means supporting our bodies through the menopause transition, which is a hugely stressful change into our bodies. Our brain undergoes almost a total rewiring. There's loads of changes happening in our body, and it needs energy to do that. We also need to have the energy to repair and renew our body. Our skin is regenerating every depends how old you are, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. Skin, nails, muscles, organs, even our whole, skeleton renews itself every 10 years. So we're constantly in this cycle of repairing and renewing our body. We need food. We need food to do that. It's the building blocks of our body. We also need to have the energy to create adaptations to exercise. And this is something that happens, if you think about when you exercise, if you want to exercise to get stronger, the way you do that is lift heavy weights that cause a little bit of micro damage in your muscles. Then when you go to bed that night, your body has to repair it and rebuild it. It knows that you've gone past its limit that day, so it's painful. And therefore, the process of getting stronger is that it repairs and rebuilds this muscle to make it bigger so that next time when you pick that weight up, you can lift it for longer. And that's the process that we're going through when we do strength training. So we need to have the energy to create those adaptations, to build that muscle, and even to burn fat as fuel. It takes energy for us to do this. And, it's interesting because, when I was young, when my daughter was young, I would never have sent her to school hungry. And in fact, one of the things I was always worried about, and I still am now really, even though she's nearly 18, I was worried that she'll be hungry mid-morning. But for years, I just didn't eat until 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I was fasting. And it was almost that mornings were the busiest time of my day. And I was really struggled to get all the way through them. Even people with pets recognize that, we'll care more about giving our pets the right food than we will do ourselves. So we have to change the way we think about nutrition and stop thinking about it as something that we don't have time for, or we constantly having to eat less, hold back on how much we need, and start to think about eating 3 large filling meals a day. And each of those meals has to have enough protein for us, for our particular size. I'm going to tell you how to work that out in a minute. Plenty of vegetables. And you'll know that we're aiming to have at least 30 variations of fruit and vegetables and plant-based materials a week. I aim for maybe around a pound of vegetables every day, just for me. Moderate fat, again, we don't need to go down the low fat route because we need it for hormone production, and slightly higher fat content in our meals is really valuable for women and really important for women, particularly now. The high amount of vegetables is really important because it has lots of micronutrients in those, but also they help improve and maintain the gut microbiome, which is something that changes in menopause, which I'll talk about tomorrow. And that can be linked to increasing body fat. So primary things where we get most of our nutrition from are protein, which is, like I said before, it's the building blocks of your body. So think about protein as the Lego pieces to rebuild your hair, your skin, your nails. We need moderate fat, we need all these vegetables. And then we vary the carbohydrates to preference. And when I talk about carbohydrates, I'm talking about your bread, pasta, rice, noodles, those sorts of things. And, if the more exercise you do, the more carbohydrates we can eat or need. But if we aren't doing a lot of exercise, or maybe, we're going towards pre-diabetes or have diabetes, or we had gestational diabetes, or it's in the family, then we really want to be pulling down those carbs. But within that spectrum, it's about preference and about working out how many of the carbohydrates you need to hit the weight that you want. And it's important to say that we're just varying the amount. Nothing's bad. You can eat anything you want. And it's always really, and I do think it's really important not to think that you have to ban foods, because that's counterproductive. For anyone who loves bread, it's much better to eat a bit of bread than try and give up bread and then binge on it sometime later on. Okay. So when we have this really simple structure of these 3 filling meals a day that are really well balanced, what this does is it increases the amount of nutrition that you are getting each day. And this is where the magic starts to happen. Okay, because just reading my notes on here, because what it does, first of all, it stabilizes your energy levels. Okay, and that's key, and that's a game changer straight off the bat, because that gives you a steady supply of energy and nutrients throughout the day. Because you've got these, well spaced out meals, and the way they're balanced, it helps to stabilize blood sugar. That can be really powerful to help reduce cravings and feelings of hunger. But also, because another way it reduces cravings, is that you're eating more nutrition. And there is an emerging school of thought that suggests that one reason that we get cravings and why we can really overeat processed food is because even when we're getting enough calories for energy, if we're not getting enough nutrition, then our body drives us to keep eating. So what happens when people switch to these 3 nutritious meals a day, it's like a switch has been turned off in your body. And that was what happened to me when I started eating like this. I'm going back quite a long time, but I was someone who, I was vegetarian, not very well educated vegetarian, because I was just living on pasta and tomato and vegetable sauce pretty much. But I was always starving. And I just couldn't eat enough to get rid of this urge to eat. And when I did switch over to this way of eating, it literally was an instant change. And I mean, like, one meal following that profile, and it was just like, whoa, I'm not hungry anymore. So, there's an immediate benefit to this and making these changes very quickly that will just completely change the way your appetite works. And what you don't realize is good homemade meals contain far fewer calories than you think. Especially when you compare it to the amount of calories that constant grazing, add up to across a week. So when I change clients onto this meal plan, which you're going to get a copy of, by the way, they feel like they're eating more because they're not used to having these really big filling meals, but then they end up eating less frequently and they stop snacking. So therefore they end up eating far fewer calories. And this is how they then lose weight without the hunger, without the deprivation that you usually experience when you're a diet. And that's what makes this way of eating feel so sustainable. And like I say, the effects are instant and people can be absolutely blown away by the changes to their appetite. But there's other really powerful benefits as well. There's more energy, better sleep, better mood. And a big one that takes people by surprise is even feeling more productive. And that combination of not thinking about food or fighting cravings with more energy can actually then send productivity levels completely through the roof. So I hope that this helps you understand a little bit more about the approach, this really simple shift. No foods are banned, but what we're going to do, and I'm going to help you understand this with the meal plan, is you need to be having and weighing your protein for each meal, weighing your vegetables for each meal, and then experimenting with the amount of fat and carbohydrates that you need to eat over time so that you understand what that level looks like to put you either in a weight loss mode or a maintenance mode. Okay. So eventually we all want to go into maintenance anyway. So we have to learn and how to flex that. So it's really straightforward. But after this video, I'm going to put a link into the chat that tells you how to work out how much protein you need to have. And that is the starting point that I recommend people have. And getting the scales out and weighing the foods that are high protein, like your yogurt, like meat, tofu, beans, etc., and working out this format so that you learn what's the right amount for you. Because one of the things that we've just not, or probably lost a little bit of track of in a modern life, is portion control and probably overeating and having portions that are too big for us. Because what we don't do is we don't listen to our appetite. We don't notice when we're full. I'm going to tell you a little story before I finish. I'm the sort of person who is always hungry. I just, even now, after all this time, have to have a confession. I have to be very mindful about how much I'm eating because I would always keep going and I would always have more. Ironically, my daughter, who's nearly 18, like I said, she has probably got a perfectly regulated natural appetite. And the minute she's full, she cannot even stomach another mouthful of food. Actually makes her sick, the thought of it, and that's how your appetite regulates itself. When you're hungry, when you're starving, food tastes incredible, but then our enjoyment of that food starts to taper off until we're then just eating it for the sake of it, or because we've been told to empty our plates when we were kids, which I've never done to her, I have to say, knowing a bit better. But that's what she's like. Even when she was a little kid, if she'd had, a family party for her birthday, for example, and we'd had a meal and, cake blew the candles out of the cake and it was time for cake, she wouldn't eat the cake if she was full. She'd just say, oh, I'll have some in a bit, because she just had no appetite left. So she's a very, very lucky person. It's got nothing to do with me. They're her father's genes, not mine. But this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get this correct nutritional profile in place and understand what that is, and then learn how to tune back into our appetite so that we're eating the right amount for us and our needs. And that is then how we start to, lose weight quite effortlessly, because we're not really feeling hungry. We're just learning what the right amount of food is for us. And having this approach of these really nutritious meals cuts out the need for a lot of snacks. Okay, and that's where the calories get saved. So that's an introduction to that. There's more information that I'm going to come in. I just didn't want to overload everyone to begin with. So tomorrow I'm going to go into menopause in a little bit more details to give you more information about how menopause changes your body in relation to body composition, i.e. how much fat and muscle you've got, and also how it affects the effect of food and exercise on our bodies. Because a lot of people think, I'm eating in the same way that I always have done. Why am I suddenly gaining weight? So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to put a 7-day meal plan into the WhatsApp group, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier for you to put this process into practice and try out some of the meals and set yourself a week meal plan and just see how you feel. So thank you very much for that. Now, do ask me questions about this in the WhatsApp group. Make the most of it. I'm very happy to give you more information. So yeah, and ask away. And I'll see you very soon in the next video. All right, bye for now.